Don't give a fuck when you land or not, just let him go. Don't worry about it, you're gonna be a shitty fight, but you gotta let punches go.
Last round.
You can't wait until they get, if you miss it, bang, go right back. And don't take 30 seconds to start another punch.
Alexander, I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody like me. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable.
Look at that combination. And the turn.
I kept telling him he had no punch, he couldn't hit, he's swinging like a sissy, he's missing, let me see your bumps. I hadn't started damping yet. A tremendous sensational first round, and Hearns gets hurt. Hearns got stunned. Pacquiao was stunned early in the round. Great first round. Incredible. Perhaps one of the best in middleweight history.
That black guy, he hits hard.
Fire!
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Hands of Fire Box and Talk. I'm your host, George Dampier, writer and reporter for RealCombatMedia.com. Man, what a fight, kinda. Well, what a night of fights, should I say. Because, the undercard, including the main event, was, pretty decent. It was a good sum of action. You got the pizzazz and the thrilling fight of the Benavidez fight, and Oscar Valdez, who just continues to build upon a great career that this kid really has going forward. And Terrence Crawford, man, last week I picked against him, but it was really only because of, I guess, really the tangibles. The pretty much what he was facing as far as an opponent who was bigger, possibly stronger, and it was really for me just to find out what Crawford was really made of. When he's not fighting a smaller fighter, which was really a criticism of him up to this point. His biggest fights were just against smaller guys, but man, he proved to have a backup plan, to be versatile, and with all that said, some pop too. So let's jump into it. I mean, that was a little extended introduction, but there's a lot to talk about. I'm recording this podcast a tad bit earlier than I usually do. This is actually, technically it is Monday or Wednesday, the typical day of recording for Hands of Fire podcast. But, it's the early mornings. This is 12:56 a.m. Eastern time. And I just had to get it out, man, because I couldn't wait till tomorrow morning, afternoon, or night to get it out, because of course, with the news breaking alongside with everything, I just had to get it out. So let's just do a quick run through of the whole evening for the fights this past Saturday. Like I mentioned before, Jose Benavidez scored a unanimous decision over Francisco Santana, 10-round decision. Pretty good fight. I didn't get to see much of this fight. It was kind of going on during my work schedule, so I really just got to see the tail end. Parts of the beginning and the tail end. But from everything that I've heard about the fight, it was a pretty decent fight. My only criticism really with Jose Benavidez is he tends to fight, like, for me, he's a tall, lean, and a tall, lean fighter who typically with those attributes you fight with your advantages. This guy, regardless how small or how much of an advantage he has over a fighter, he continues to fight as if he's a 5'2", stocky guy, and it's and that's dangerous for him. And of course, it proved in this fight too that he just continues to get he makes himself more vulnerable than he needs to, and it's annoying really to watch. Fight with some damn sense, boy. So he gets the unanimous decision over Francisco Santana. And let's see, we also had Alexander Godskov, I'm not even going to try. And Tommy Karpinski. I'm really sorry with, when it comes to these pronunciations, but I mean, shit. You tell me that's how the fuck you even say that. But Tommy Karpinski, of course, is more notable for his more recent fight with Adonis Stevens. He lost to Alexander D, or G is what we're going to call him, won by TKO in the 6th round with about 2 minutes and 21 seconds into the fight. It was a little shaky at first. He did get knocked down, but came through to get just get his back and claim to win the fight. So Bob Arum was really high on the guy, so it's that knockdown did knock some of his invincibility to his name, but hey man, you get the job done and you can't really criticize that. Oscar Valdez, man, I've always been high on this guy, really since his past 2 fights, man. I'm really impressed with him. He scores the 2nd round knockout over Matias Carlos Adrian Herrera, who I mentioned toward the tail end of last week's podcast as being a possible threat because of obviously just on the numbers, looking at his record, and couldn't be more wrong. Well, not wrong, but kind of came to the conclusion that he's really only fought in Argentina, hence the incredible and good-looking record. And Valdez just cut right through him like a hot knife through butter. I mean, some people were a little, critical into saying that Oscar Valdez was just loading up on a lot of punches. But when you look at the skill set of this guy, it's really, he's only loading up just because he knows that he can get rid of the guy. And he definitely has the technique, the skill, obviously the speed, and definitely the power to get guys out of there. And that's exactly what he did. He won the vacant world title, the WBO featherweight championship, and congratulations for him. He's looking forward to possibly getting a rematch with Lomachenko, and that would be an amazing fight. So let's hope that happens further down the line. That's probably a little bit more toward the future than the near future. But, what we're all here for is the review of Terrence Crawford's unanimous decision win, dominant unanimous decision win over Viktor Postol. Again, I had picked Viktor Postol off his size, strength, and basically just the fact that he was probably the best fighter that Terrence Crawford had faced up to this point. Terrence Crawford, I had definitely was rooting for, and I was definitely hoping that he did well with this fight, because for boxing, it would be really good for him to win this fight. But I'm going to get into the whole climate for Terrence Crawford after this, but let's just go through the fight. The fight did start off somewhat close, a little, and very competitive, which is kind of seems to be a trend with Terrence Crawford and most of these fights. Max Kellerman and, of course, Jim Lampley and the crew had picked up on the fact that, he is a slow starter, but it usually takes generally about you know, 3 to 4 rounds for him to, you know, really start getting his motor going. And up through about the fourth round, they kind of were exchanging. I gave Postol the first round, Crawford the second, Postol the third, and Crawford the fourth. Then came the fifth round, and from the damn near very first punch of that fifth round, Terrence Crawford knocked Postol down with a right hook. Now, this punch wasn't really much of it. It was a thudding punch, very strong punch. Didn't seem like it really hurt, but really just kind of was so powerful, it just knocked him off balance, type of knockdown. And, you know, Postol was a little upset with it, but by all technicalities, it's a knockdown. Whether or not it really shook you or hurt you is besides the point. I mean, it landed and you fell down, so there's nothing really more to look into or be so confused on behalf of Postol. However, he definitely did hurt him later on, I believe about a minute later, where he had caught Postol trying to come in on the inside, had Postol stumbling, and once Postol started to stumble, Terrence tried to, you know, definitely capitalize on him, and in the process of trying to back away, Postol had dropped down to the ground, or at least not dropped down, but really just couldn't keep himself up and ended up, you know, falling over and try to use his gloves to keep his balance. So he was definitely hurt, at least with that knockdown. And really just from then on, it was just Crawford using his movement, boxing ability. And what really stuck out for me was of course, with his switching ability, just kind of amplified just how difficult it was going to be for Postol to really do anything. He, in his way to avoid the right hand, he was going left and right, you know, side to side movement, which is really throwing him off, throwing Postol off, and Postol just really couldn't do anything. You know, he was very straightforward, and while this was a tremendous victory for Terrence Crawford, and I don't like the fact that people are trying to diminish Postol now afterward because of how simplistic Crawford made Postol look. It's really just more toward Crawford's credit that Postol looked the way he did. However, Postol was very disappointing as far as offensive output. You know, I definitely thought that he would, you know, and especially with the work with Freddie Roach, I definitely thought that he would have a lot more, as far as in his bag of tricks of just, how can I say, his offensive output was just a 1-2. That was it. I mean, all night I was looking for a left hook. Because, you know, that's typically, other than the straight right hand, it's the left hook is probably the second most important punch against the southpaw. And it was just non-existent. And even to that extent, he wasn't even cutting off the ring or even providing an angle for himself to even land the right hand. So forget the fact that he couldn't land the left hook at all, or wasn't even trying to throw it. He didn't even really put himself in position to land the right hand. Now, however, he was sneaking in a few shots here and there, which, like I said, Terrence Crawford did dominate through then on a lot of judges' scorecards. He pretty much won every round from the 5th to the 12th. I personally gave Postol the 10th round. And the 11th round, I did give to Postol, but with his his rabbit punch landing on Terrence Crawford, where his point got deducted, I gave that a 9-9 round. So all in all, I gave the total. My total scorecard was 116 for Crawford, 109 for Postol. But like I said, Terrence Crawford showed, he showed a lot of versatility. I didn't give him enough credit as far as his boxing ability. I knew his ring IQ as far as just to evade, slip, and counter, but which he definitely brought into effect at times. And there was also times it seemed like Terrence Crawford could really just get Postol out of there when he if he really wanted to, especially toward the tail end. Even in the 12th round, he had him hurt again when Postol just basically had to sell out to get the win. And he, on top of that, he was frustrating Postol, sticking out his tongue and, raising his hand. And, it was clear that Postol just really was not having his night. And, it's unfortunate in the fact that, I thought that Postol could do a little bit more, but I also give more credit to Terrence for doing what he did and being able to disarm his opponent that way. And I don't think any of us, boxing fans, writers, or just, I don't know if I said fans already, but we shouldn't take away from that. We shouldn't be coming out of this saying, well, Postol wasn't as good as I thought. No, I mean, coming in, these were the top 2 fighters in the division. So we can't just knock that off. It is what it is, and when you do that, you're taking away from Terrence Crawford. And if you're deliberately trying to take away from Terrence Crawford, then you're just a straight up fool. Because this guy, I mean, up to this point, we knew what Terrence Crawford could do when it just came down to just a throwing down, right? We've seen him in firefights, so we know that aspect of him, and it was almost because of that I didn't think he would be able to do what he did this past Saturday. And, for the guys that are, upset with thinking that he was running, listen, there's a difference between just completely avoiding combat overall and doing the bare minimum, and then there's just flat out slickster boxing, counter punching, creating angles. And that's exactly what Terrence Crawford did. And if you have a problem with that, then you probably don't like much of the great boxers of all time, really. And that's something you're probably going to have to come to grips with. Now, coming out of this fight, we actually going into the fight, it was, I believe, about maybe a day or two before the fight actually happened, might have been, Friday, that Bob Arum said that Manny Pacquiao would agree that he would fight Terrence Crawford after the fight. Now, we know Manny Pacquiao had planned to come back on November 5th, so pretty much that would mean Terrence Crawford's next fight would be Manny Pacquiao. Had, everything laid to terms and everything, just planned out that way. However, it seems like Pacquiao wants to either take another fight before that, or as Freddie Roach said, that with Manny Pacquiao, that he feels that there's multiple fights ahead for Manny Pacquiao. He says that he feels he still feels that he has a lot to offer. And if you watch the past Timothy Bradley fight, I would definitely agree with that. I saw the Manny Pacquiao, like I said, of almost 2009. So how does Terrence Crawford do against Manny Pacquiao? And with the response of Freddie Roach this morning, where he said that he personally wouldn't accept a fight for Manny Pacquiao with Terrence Crawford, basically off to the performance that he had, or at least that he experienced with Postol in this past fight. He said that he feels that Crawford at this point in time is like a young Mayweather, and the fact that Manny had trouble with Mayweather moving, and with the fact that Terrence is a hard puncher on the counter, whereas he's saying that if he was able to hurt Postol, who he knows had a good chin, he's worried for Manny Pacquiao. Now, even if you believe that, was that the greatest or like the best thing to do at that point in time? Freddie Roach, I love him to death. Definitely, have him as a top trainer out there. Doesn't really do himself favors when it comes to this press thing, man. He definitely puts his foot in his mouth a lot. And I really think, especially after this Mayweather loss, really fucked him up, because, now is, you really can't take anything that he says off face value. So, on my personal thought, how does Terrence Crawford do with Manny Pacquiao? I think he does pretty well. And, however, this is a southpaw. One of the best southpaws out there. Or maybe even of all time for some people to think. So, I mean, how does that change things? Again, and Manny Pacquiao is a lot faster than Viktor Postol. And you would hope, or at least think, after fighting Floyd Mayweather, he would learn a thing or two about ring generalship, more specifically cutting off the ring. So it makes for a very interesting fight, and if it were to happen immediately, meaning November 5th, boy, I really can't say for certain at the moment. It's one of those fights that you got to see through the process of the build-up, how the fighters are looking. But, at this point in time, I do think Manny Pacquiao still can compete, if not beat, most of these top guys out there today. He doesn't seem to have shown a full deterioration of really any skills that he's had. I mean, if anything, he's become a smarter fighter, which makes him even more dangerous. However, he did lose with that gain of boxing ability. He did lose a bit of his offensive dominance. But like it's shown in the Timothy Bradley fight, when he wants to, if it's really on the mind and he feels comfortable doing it, he can definitely bring back that Pac-Man of old. So also with this fight, people are debating where they actually put Terrence Crawford among his peers. More specifically, pound for pound. Now, there's really two reactions we've been here, or at least I've been seeing, among Facebook and other podcasters or YouTubers out there. It's one either saying that, people are going overboard off the reaction to think that Terrence Crawford could be in the pound for pound, and the other is, well, he's definitely in the top 3 now. And for me, it's a bit in the middle. Now, considering who's on the pound for pound, and let's go with the Ring Magazine's pound for pound. There's Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez at number 1, Sergey Kovalev at number 2, Gennady Golovkin at number 3, Andre Ward at number 4. They have Terrence Crawford at number 5, which I would agree with 5 to 10, personally. Guillermo Rigondeaux at number 6, Vasily Lomachenko at number 7, Canelo Alvarez at number 8, Shinsuke Yamaka at number 9 and Nanyua Inoue at number 10. Now, these are, the tail end of this is a bit debatable. I think I've made it clear before on prior podcasts, I do not have Canelo Alvarez as a top 10 fighter. His popularity is what I think, and it's clearly, with this being the ring, there's a little bit of conflict of interest, him being a Golden Boy fighter. Now, among the general names of pound for pound, if I were just to go with pretty much the top names, or at least the top 15, like I said, I think I said, without the names that I already mentioned before, there's Keith Thurman, Tyson Fury, Vladimir Klitschko, Erislandy Lara, Carl Frampton, Danny Garcia, Danny Jacobs, Miguel Cotto, and Adonis Stevens. Now, if Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Danny Jacobs, Miguel Cotto, Tyson Fury, and Kell Brook can even make it into someone's top 20, top 15, then there's no way you can't have Terrence Crawford up there. Now, for me, pound for pound is a very simple measure. All it is for me, for some it breaks down to, a lot of categories and elements to make up this category. But for me, it's really just if weight didn't matter and the skill sets were to equate with them, who wins? That's all it is. It's really just a matter of an eye test, a hyper-focused eye test. And if you can't see Terrence Crawford getting the best of Danny Garcia, who I feel like he could move up to 147 and beat him easily, Erislandy Lara, I think, doesn't give much to... I don't know. He doesn't give much toward that. I mean, it would be a pretty interesting fight. I'm not going to lie about that. Keith Thurman, I think he definitely beats Keith Thurman. And, it's almost, how can I say? You're kind of fooling yourself if you're thinking that, yeah, we get it. Like, I know what the syndrome is of fights immediately happen and then a lot of people go crazy. I mean, this was the same instance on, how I felt when Canelo Alvarez beat Amir Khan. There was still talk about him being a pound-for-pound fighter, which I think is just flat-out ridiculous. I don't think he even beats even any of the guys I mentioned on the top 10. Well, other than Miguel Cotto, which is still questionable, obviously, because it seemed that the reason he really won the fight was just because he was just a bigger man. And, had Miguel Cotto, been just as big, it would probably be a different story. So, time just kind of just went way over my head with this because here we already are at the little instrumental has already kicked in already, so which means the tail end of the podcast is on its way. Which also means that I totally am squeezed for time to mention about the upcoming fight with Carl Frampton and Jesus Christ, I'm already going to forget his name. Leo Santa Cruz, sorry. This coming Saturday. For me, I almost really forgot it that this fight was even coming up. Or at least, well, I knew the fight was happening, but just forgot that it was just right around the corner. But I don't really take much interest into it other than it being a pretty okay fight, because both of these guys completely ducked Guillermo Rigondeaux. So I don't really, I can't take as much stock as maybe some others will. However, it is a decent fight on paper. Carl Frampton being the slick boxer and Leo Santa Cruz being the aggressive volume puncher, who, I feel will just run into, he's going to run into the wrong guy one day. Whether that's Carl Frampton's style, I don't believe so. So I see Santa Cruz winning this fight, maybe by a knockout. At most, actually, let me say that with some, let me say that with my chest. I say Leo Santa Cruz beats Carl Frampton by a knockout. What round? I can't tell you. I don't know. Early, late, I don't know, but I feel like he's gonna overwhelm Carl Frampton. So, what am I missing? Did we go through everything? Did I mention how good Terrence Crawford is? Man, it's I'm very impressed. I'm really happy for Terrence Crawford, because this was his first pay-per-view. The numbers probably aren't going to be that great, but a little bit more people bought the fight than I expected. So I'm glad for that too. And Terrence Crawford got his way to be mentioned on ESPN's First Take, but maybe with a little help of Max Kellerman now being on that show. So I don't know, but the point is he's getting his name out there. He's getting the name recognition and the credit that he really deserves, because like I said, I was hoping that he won this fight. I just wasn't sure if he was going to be able to pull it off. So yes, I questioned him and he proved me wrong, which is what I wanted. I'm glad for that. This was one of those few instances where I was hoping I was wrong. And I was. So thank you, TC. What's on the horizon for this guy? Spence, Pacquiao? Who knows? But we know that I'll see you next week. Guys, keep your hands up. Hands of Fire Box Talk. Peace.